What's going on, everyone? This is Real Sales Talk, Season 2, Episode 6. This show is all going to be about sales management. As the sales leader goes, so goes the sales team. Henry, my fellow co-host, how are you doing this evening?
Life's good, Sean. Life's good. Can't complain at all. How are you?
Good to see you. I'm doing well. Thank you. We've got a really cool guest on the show. Super excited about this one. I guess anytime we have a guest on, I say I'm super excited. So, but I'm extra super excited for my friend Mike Weinberg on the show. Mike, how are you doing this evening?
I would say I'm super extra thankful to be with you. for chasing me down. And when you said it was Sunday Night Live, I thought, what could be more fun than that? So thank you.
Absolutely. And shout out to Jeb, because Jeb also kind of threw in a little bit of peer pressure to have you on the show as well.
Yeah, you know what? I've learned so much from these guys. That's one of the things that's most intriguing to me in this new paradigm of operating. It drives my dad and a lot of older guys crazy that all these people that would appear to be competitors are all friends, and we throw each other business and we promote each other, and it's like mind-blowing, right? That there's enough work and enough of the pie for everybody. But Jeb has been very generous to me, and it was fun. We traded writing forwards for each other's latest books, and that's worked out really well for both of us. Particularly me, because his fanatical prospecting is just off the charts. So I'm enjoying my book, getting tagged along with his, and he's just really solid. So we'll get into some real sales leadership talk, and I'm sure I'll circle back on Jeb and a few other guys later.
Absolutely, yeah. It seems like there's a cadre of you guys that really hang out together, help each other promote each other. Which reminds me, I actually had the pleasure of meeting Anthony Iannarino in San Francisco last week for a sales conference. Cool guy.
Yeah, super big brain. I'm sure it's amazing it fits inside that bald head of his. He's smarter than the rest of us.
And I think he's really coy about it too. Like super approachable, face to face. He gets on stage and he's like blowing minds. I mean, the stuff that he's talking about.
Did he show you pictures of his rock star background with his long hair? And,
That was awesome. He also showed the CAT scan as well.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
Of his tumor that he had removed when he was younger.
Yep.
Cool story. So, Mike, I want you to do a little bit of introduction of yourself, because I think always people can do it better than if I or Henry were to do it. So give me a little bit of insight into who you are, your background, and I also want to know how you got into sales as well.
Yeah, that's a great story, getting into sales. You know, it's funny, everyone hates talking about themselves, introducing. I'll just say this. I love sales. And my favorite thing in business is helping individual salespeople and sales teams and companies get more new business, and that's really where I focus. You know, in terms of what I'm doing, I'm turning around sales teams, and I'm trying to create sales organizations that are proficient hunters. And lately, I'm spending a whole lot of time with owners and executives in smaller companies or leadership teams in larger companies, trying to get them to focus on sales leadership and culture and talent management. And as we dive in it throughout this conversation, I'll share how I was really screwed up when I first got into consulting, because I thought I could fix everything by helping salespeople sell like me, and that I fell really short from a transformation of organization standpoint. So I'll get into that. How I get into sales? I didn't want to go into sales. I was a business fraternity guy as an undergrad. My dad was always VP of sales of really big, like New York City-based companies, and I thought my vision of sales was driving a company car, calling on retailers, stacking displays, pushing promotions, getting people to say yes to something they really didn't want or need. I didn't get it until my second job out of school. I went to work for Slim Fast Foods when it was growing like crazy, and I was the assistant to the chairman and owner and CEO, who was just an incredible entrepreneur, and he let young people do really silly things. Like one day he turned to me and said, "Hey, go buy me an airplane." He was tired of chartering jets, and he put me in charge of the flight department, and I was 23 years old, and I went out and bought a Gulfstream jet, and then I built a flight department, and I got to spend a lot of hours in that plane learning how to fly, and also in the back with him. and going around the country to see the world's most impressive retailers and calling on Walmart and Target and Walgreens and going out west to Albertsons and I sitting in the room watching this master seller, because he was the CEO, but let's be honest, he was the chief rainmaker. And he taught me that sales wasn't what I thought it was. It was really about friendships and trust and advising and consulting and understanding what your customer needed. And it aligned with what my dad had always taught me, that if you can help your customer win, then you're going to win. And it had nothing to do with manipulation or playing games or pushing stuff on people. In fact, Danny would regularly tell the salespeople, you talk too much. And when you're talking, you're not learning, so shut up. God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth, and that's a great percentage to use them. And we're all nodding and laughing, because in today's world, especially in the tech space where you guys play, we have all these demo crazed salespeople, that the moment they get a discovery meeting, it goes into demo and then presentation mode, and we don't learn anything. And it's click, 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 feature, 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 and there's never any great tying it to, what we've learned about the prospect situation. So that's a long darn answer I just gave you, but I ended up in sales because Danny modeled for me what high-level consultative selling looked like. It aligned with the things my dad was trying to get me to understand, and I wanted out of New York City. I was just tired of the expense and the commute, and I wanted to get out and head to the Midwest and just try a new life. And a number of things I tried didn't work out, and then the guy that handled Walmart for Slim Fast quit. And I went to the owner and the head of sales, said, you keep asking me to go into sales, and this is the job I'll take. And I was 25 years old, and I moved, single guy, got in a U-Haul, drove across the country, and rented an apartment here in St. Louis. That was 24 years ago this month.
Wow.
And this is home. Met my wife, got 3 kids. I switched from a Mets fan to a Cardinals fan, which wasn't easy because the Mets were pond scum back in the 80s. And anyway, that's a whole other story. But I learned, that's like I cut my teeth calling on Walmart and managing a territory here in the Midwest, and the rest is really history.
Really cool. Really, really cool. Now, before Henry gets into some other minor details, many people probably don't know this about you unless they follow you pretty consistently online. You're a Porsche fan. So how old were you when you got into Porsches, and how did that coincide with your sales career, if at all?
Okay. Yeah, I have been a Porsche fan for probably since I was 10 years old. It's funny you caught that from me. I saw a movie. I don't remember the name of the movie, but it had a really good-looking couple in it, and they were driving around a 911 Carrera. And what's cool about the 911 Carrera, let's say that was the mid-'70s. The car looks about the same today as it did then. It's that just celebrated its 50th anniversary, and I've always thought that was the coolest car. And then in college, my RA on my dorm floor freshman year taught me a lot of things about life. He taught us how to dunk Oreos and know when they were in the milk long enough to pull them out. He taught us how to drive in the snow. And he was a Porsche fanatic. And he taught me all about the history of Porsche. And he made me stop saying Porsche and pronounce it Porsche because he was so insane about it. So I kind of got the bug back then. So I've just always been into the cars. And the beauty today with the internet and Auto Trader, and anyone can be a car expert. So it's fun buying and selling cars, and you can really end up in a beautiful classic car for not that much money, as long as you can afford the maintenance and have someone you trust. Mm-hmm. So I've always just been in awe of the company, honestly, and following the generation. I've got several Porsche 911 coffee table books, and sometimes I'll just scan through the pictures and look at the different generations of the cars. And I'm not an artist, and I don't really have any great appreciation for fine art. To me, I think car design is just that what makes me happy. And my happiest place in the world right now is the Porsche Driving Experience Center right outside the Atlanta airport, where I've gone a few times. In fact, I've traded a client, and they couldn't quite afford my fee, but they knew the way to my heart was through Porsches, and they bought me some time at the track with an instructor. And I was more than happy to do that for running one of their sales meetings. Actually, I've done it twice now. So yeah, that's just my path. Are you a car guy, Sean? Is that what made you?
Yeah. I'm a car guy. I mean, probably not the biggest of car guys, but my car right now that I really love is a Tesla. Been following them since their early days, and at some point in the future we'll likely get one, but don't have one yet.
Yeah. You know, I have a friend who has a Tesla, and it gave him great pleasure to take me out in my 911 and him and his Tesla, and he just dusted me.
Yes.
Golf cart, 0 to all the power you want in half a second. Yeah, it wasn't even close.
Yeah.
And that's a cool car. And that guy, I mean, talk about a success story. I don't know where it's going to play long term for them, and I don't know how they're going to make all these cars at the less expensive model that they're coming out with. But that guy is really an example of entrepreneurism, what this country needs to get where we want to be. For sure. Yeah.
Agree.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Agree. Awesome. Yep. Henry, what do we got going tonight?
Yeah, so we're having a great conversation. I hate to slow it down, but I did want to at least let everybody know just about the social chatter and really how to put in questions and things like that. As you guys know, anybody watching, Sean and I are letting everybody know just about the social chatter and really how to put in questions and things like that. Yeah, so it sounds like we're getting a little repeat, but
I didn't realize I had another tab open that had us live, so I think it'll be better now. Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
Sorry about
that. So Twitter is a great place to do any type of questions or anything like that. Just do #RealSalesTalk. We're always going to be watching that hashtag throughout the show, so we can answer any questions or anything like that you guys may have for Mike or Sean or myself. And then also, I'm at Talk to Henry J on Twitter, so you can always talk to me there. Sean's at Sean M. Mitchell. And then, Mike, you're at Mike_Weinberg. Is that right?
Correct.
Well, there we go. So any questions or anything you guys want to do, Twitter's probably the easiest way, and we'll make sure to engage there. So that's
awesome. Awesome. Cool, man. Thanks, Henry. So let's dive in because this is going to be, I think, a really, really great topic, not only for sales managers, but also for sales reps and entrepreneurs who are watching this show tonight and listening to the recording on a podcast. So I want to kick this off. This show is all about as the sales leader goes, so goes the sales team, and they're really interdependent of each other. But my experience, Mike, has been, and my first question for you to kind of kick things off is, my experience hasn't really been that great with sales managers. In fact, many of them have been terrible. I'm not sure why, and that's my first question for you is, why are there so many terrible sales managers out there?
That may be the only question you get to ask tonight if we spend the appropriate amount of time unpacking that question. I'm going to throw a couple things against the wall, and I'm going to let you pick which one we unpack first, all right? So I think there are so few great sales managers today because, one, nobody's mentoring people how to be a sales leader. Two, senior executives and organizations have lost sight of what the sales leader's job is, and from tools to chaos to everybody running lean and thinking everybody could do 4 jobs and respond to hundreds of emails and go to corporate meetings and be on conference calls and babysit a CRM and lead and do accountability. I mean, it's crazy. So there's a lack of mentors. I think we've lost sight of the job. And we've put a lot of people in sales management roles that weren't ready for it, maybe on the leadership side. I make the case in Sales Management Simplified and very early in the book that there's very little in common between a sales manager and a salesperson. The only thing that's common is the word sales, but you behave and succeed in almost in opposite manners. So we have a lot of sales people put in sales management jobs that just think they're now superhero, superstar salespeople as manager, and that has very dangerous consequences, which we can talk about. And then there's just general other things going on in the world of sales where we have a lack of sales talent, and there's a lot of confusion because of all these nouveau experts. And there's a lot of guys that do what I do, and a lot of ladies that do what I do, that the people you've already mentioned, Anthony and Jeb and my friend Mark and Miles, we're having a war with them in the blogosphere because they have come out and told everyone that will listen, nothing is the same, everything has changed, all that stuff that used to work 15 years ago is dead and dumb, don't even bother trying it. So today you need new tools, new toys, new processes, and that's just craziness. So there's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of chaos. We have a lack of mentoring. We've lost sight of the job, and then we have salespeople that weren't prepared or didn't have it modeled. Like if you take yourself for example, if you haven't had good sales management modeled for you, and you got a sales manager job, how would you know where to start? And I say that last point. I'll shut up for a minute. I give a ton of credit to my mentors. I did not get here alone. I got lots of help from lots of executives and lots of managers that built into me. And I watched what they did, and I took the good, and I morphed it together. And as you read, my book, I mention all these different people that I stole ideas from. So, I see, unfortunately today, I don't see a lot of guys, especially younger guys, getting that kind of mentoring. So I'll pause there, and you pick your poison. We can unpack different tracks.
I think that's really interesting because it seems intuitive, Mike, that let's say business owner, CEO, founder has a sales rep who is doing great, crushing it, like crushing the quota, really doing great things. Why wouldn't that sales rep potentially be a good sales leader, a VP of sales, or a sales manager? Why is there such a difference between the sales manager role? Can you unpack that a little bit and why?
Yeah. So let's start with what makes a top producer. The best salespeople are incredibly selfish. They block out everybody else. They focus on themselves, prospect list, their customers, their commission. They're good at keeping everybody else at bay. They generally have very high egos and good empathy to go along with it. And that person I just described, who could be a star individual producer, if they take that same way of operating into a management role, they're going to fail miserably. They're going to compete with their people. They're going to take the glory. They're going to live their whole life on do not disturb and trying to keep everybody away from them because they don't understand, as the leader, as the manager, you win through your people. You can't be the sales hero. You can't be in every deal. You can't write every proposal. You can't go on every big presentation. It doesn't work. There's no multiplier effect there. There's no leverage. It's not tenable. So the concept of being the hero, which you can be and thrive as the seller, does not play as the sales manager. I've got a whole chapter on do you want to be the hero or the hero maker, and we can talk more about that as we go on. But it's a very different mentality, winning on your own versus winning through people. So yeah, it's intuitive that someone who's a rock star might be a great sales leader if they can teach, if they can mentor, if they understand that they can't do it all themselves. They've got to work through their people and build a team.
So teaching others, mentoring, and being okay with not being the center of attention and the rock star are things that are qualities. So, I mean, would it be appropriate to say that the person to promote into that sales manager or sales VP role may not be the best producer?
Yeah, there's no law that says you have to be a great sales technician or tactician to be a great sales leader. In fact, that was my big awakening. When I do a legit workshop for sales managers, lately I'm doing more and more 1- and 2-day workshops just for sales managers. I'm very intentional in holding off talking about sales process until the end. I make the case that wrong when I got into consulting, that sales process, frankly, is the least important part of your job. It's leadership and culture and talent management. Those two things trump sales process. You can buy out sales process. You can read books. You can let other people train. That was a big awakening for me coming into this. I thought if we just got everybody to sell like me, and we hunted and we used the phone and we ran good discovery calls and we acted like consultants and we told a good story and we asked great questions and we filled up our calendar, I could transform sales organizations. And I learned the hard way, you don't transform anything if you don't deal with the leader and the culture. And that's a whole big conversation. So yeah, the one piece I want to add that I skipped, Sean, there's also this administrative burden piece of being in management that no one tells you about. And frankly, I suck at that. And it's part of the reason I struggled so badly in my first job in sales management, which I was very transparent in sharing that story in Chapter 1 of Sales Management Simplified. Everybody wants a piece of you. Everyone wants to tell you how to do your job. There is real accountability that needs to go on. There is real administration. There are really expense reports that have to get approved. There's HR issues. There's vendors that need your time. There's corporate responsibilities. And all of that sucks at you. And if you're good at admin, you can really struggle in a management role. Part of the reason I went back to full-time consulting and coaching 6 years ago was I was frustrated after trying my hand twice. I learned a ton at being a sales executive. I didn't like that I got to spend such a small percent of my time doing what I love to do, which is drive revenue, either on my own or through people. And it's much easier to come in as the outsider without all the admin garbage and all the expectations and make an impact, because I'm only talking about the things that move the needle to drive results. And that's part of why I love what I do so much.
Mm-hmm. So in terms of like management, you mentioned it's less about the having the sales process down or kind of coaching on that. It's more the leadership culture. I think you mentioned training as the third. Can you break that down a little bit? Like, what do you mean by what is a sales leader or sales manager supposed to be? What's the leadership? What's the culture they're building? Can you kind of talk to that?
Yeah, Henry, that's great. So, book screaming about all the things we've started talking about, all the reasons that sales teams underperform. That I'm going to blame on the leadership, senior leadership and sales management. And then on the second half of the book, I get into very simple framework for having sales success. And there's 3 pieces of the framework. The first part is leadership and culture. The second part is talent management. And then the last part, sales process. So in the leadership and culture piece, I'm talking about everything from how the sales manager spends his or her time to what does it feel like to work on that sales team. What is the culture? Is it healthy? Is it high performance? Is it pro-sales? Is the sales team highly regarded and esteemed, or are they diminished and picked on and treated like garbage? Is there accountability? Is there results focused? Do people have goals? Are there published and distributed sales reports? Does the sales manager meet one-on-one for true accountability and pipeline reviews? Are there great sales team meetings that align, energize, and equip the team? Or are sales team meetings just boring or total drudgery or demotivating and exhausting? Does the sales manager coach the people and actually, you don't have to be a sales technician to coach and do deal reviews and sit down with someone and go through the pipeline or get someone's car or sit in the inside sales bullpen and observe and share some feedback. I think all of that together is leadership and culture. What does it feel like? What's the energy level? Is it fun? Are we results focused? Are the people being held accountable? And how's the sales manager spending their time? All of that to me fits in that first bucket.
And then the talent management bucket is what?
Okay, talent management, that's all things to do with sales talent. And for simplicity, a few years ago, I broke this down for one client. I came up with what I call the 4 R's, the letter R of talent management. It really is 3 R's, but I was sticking with the alliteration, so I'll give you the 4. Right people in the right roles. And to me, that means we got hunters hunting and zookeepers zookeeping, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. So right people in the right roles. You don't have that, you're screwed. I don't care how much training, how much coaching, how much accountability. It's way too many companies take a one-size-fits-all approach to sales talent management. It's a disaster. So right people, right roles. Retain. We must retain our top producers. Nothing hurts worse than losing an A player, mostly because we have so few A players in sales. So what are we doing to keep our A players on board, happy, engaged, and producing at peak performance? A lot of sales executives and sales managers ignore their top people and spend all their time on their problem children. That's a mistake. So 1 is right people, 2 is retain top producers, number 3 is remediate. Right? Remediate or replace underperformers. I'd rather say coach up or coach out, but again, I had the R thing going, so I stuck with remediate. And that's where we've got to address underperformance head on, and we need to do it quickly. It is a great mystery to me why executives will not allow underperformance in any other area of the company. You wouldn't take inaccurate financial statements from your controller month after month. You wouldn't allow a software coder to keep producing crappy software, right? You wouldn't let someone pack boxes wrong every month and misship stuff without making a change. And yet somehow salespeople go on forever underperforming, missing their goal, and never gets addressed. So I have a little framework for how we go in and very quickly identify underperformance and then work really hard to coach up someone who we think's a keeper, or otherwise we got to replace that person quickly. So we got right people, retain, remediate, or replace, and then the final one is recruit. Because if we're doing our job right, we're going to have turnover. That's just life. We're either adding to a growing team, or we're slowly turning people over at the bottom and raising the bar when we hire. And recruiting is kind of like prospecting. It doesn't call you. You've got to call it. So if we're really good sales management, it's a whole lot more fun, and you're a whole lot more successful if you recruit ahead of the need, right? When you're desperate to hire someone, when you've got holes on you, you do not make great decisions. But how much more effective would you be, and how much better would the talent you find if you actually had a bench of people you were working on and slowly recruiting before you actually. Those are the 4 R's, and thank you, Henry, for asking about, talking about. You don't win without talent. That's key.
Yeah.
Mike, so let's say you're a top producer. You're at a company, and you know that either the leadership is unsupportive of the sales team or the sales department, which you talk about in your book. Let's say that they're not supportive. At what point does that sales rep? Sorry, my 3.5-year-old is having a hard time.
Awesome.
Saying.
You know
That's life, huh? So at what point does the top producer decide to move on from that organization when that environment at the very top level is unsupportive?
Yeah, usually the top producer who's very confident will go quickly. At the moment they decide that they can't win at the level they want to win at the organization that they're in. We all know this, right? There are zero unemployed top producing salespeople. I mean, there's a shortage. If there are 10 to 15% true A players in sales, we're lucky. So if you happen to have one of those in your team, you don't want to lose them. And anyone will hire them because there's just not that many people that are constraint makers year after year after year after. So if they're making great money, at least somewhat supported, that they're able to deliver for their clients, and the company is not jerking around with their commission and belittling them, like they'll tolerate it for a certain point. But I will tell you, in a lot of companies, and I've advised, like I'm in a very weird situation to me and says, so, and I start pulling back the covers, and a CEO that hates and very nebulously explained commission deductions being taken every month out of someone's paycheck, and territories getting jerked with, and salespeople getting thrown under the bus when the customer complains about something, but when something good happens in an account. I mean, you get to that place where you finally go, you know what? You can't work here. It's not survivable. These people don't get it. They don't care, and they're out to get you. And it's a pretty sad situation. And that's part of the reason I was so, I don't know, volatile, angry the way I wrote the first half of the book, because I'm so tired of anti-sales, ignorant executives and entrepreneurs and owners pointing the finger at the sales manager or the sales team, trying to blame them for sales underperformance, when the issue is really back in the senior executive's office in the culture that they've created that's hurting their sales.
It all starts at the top, right? It's always if something's wrong,
always.
CEO, it's your fault, right? That's kind of the name of the game if you're starting your own thing. So.
I think that's hard for leadership to understand too. I was in a situation where I was a top performer, and the question that I asked you prior to that was sort of coming from some self-experience. But top performer, great relationships at the company, with everyone around me, and spending some time doing some indirect mentoring, and really giving, not just taking. But for some reason, top leadership just really did not believe in what I was doing. Not so much on the performance side, but they really had it out for me, and eventually it led to a really great, like 150%, 160% performance the last 3 months before I left, and at the end the relationship just, it deteriorated so much that then they just decided to let me go arbitrarily. I mean, the reason that they let me go was arbitrary, and so it really. I mean, I left that company thinking, this is not about performance, because performance is where it needs to be, and exceeding that. This is more about aligning and supporting the salespeople the way that they need to be, and the easiest way to not support your top performers is just to let them go. And so around that time was actually when I stumbled across your book, Mike. And so it was, everything that I experienced, at this company was a lot of the stuff that you talked about in that first section of your book. And so it really told me, it really encouraged me. And so I think that, it always makes me wonder, like, why isn't the salesperson, the performer, the top performer, not supported more than they are? And maybe there are some good environments where the top performers are supported, but in this case, in this example, it just wasn't the case. And I think it's really sad that the excuse that a top leader gives is something arbitrary and nothing to do with performance.
It is sad, in some ways. It's a shame. It's hard to explain. All I'll tell you is I'm not alone, and I see it more often too. And it's why when you run into a really positive pro-sales culture, invigorating, and it makes you feel alive, and it's almost shocking. That's why I took that whole chapter to describe that one company that I work with in Philadelphia. They were incredible, and it was so rare because I've been in different organizations where it's like a battle. And I honestly, I tell you that if a lot of my clients, if I polled the salespeople confidentially and asked them, do you feel like your company and your leadership is for you and for the sales team or against? The answer would be pretty sad. I think in a lot of cases the majority would say they're not really for us. They want our sales dollars, but they're not really for us in the way they behave. And that's a shame. That's really a shame.
I mean, how much of that is perception from the sales rep and not reality? I mean, how do you as a consultant distinguish perception and reality in that case, where the sales reps, let's say you poll sales team and they say, they're not for us because of X, Y, and Z. How do you decipher between what's maybe factual and emotional?
That's a great question. Hey, let me just do a check. Am I coming out okay? You're in a little bit.
Yeah, it's been a little bit segmented, but it always kind of catches up.
I think it would help if I turn. Maybe we would speed up the. Want to try?
That you're welcome to give it a try. Yeah.
But the no video.
Right,
I'm sorry, you broke up there for me too.
Yeah. I'm going to leave the camera a minute, see if we can get caught up on the feed here.
Sounds good.
Asking me to differentiate between what's reality, right? When is it just salespeople whining, or is it really an anti-sales culture?
Exactly.
I'm kind of summarize. Yeah, and here's the thing. It's a hard question because salespeople are really good at whining and bitching and moaning and
Yep.
complaining. So I'm able to listen to the top producer much closer than I'm going to listen to performers when it comes to what's going on in the situation. But having said that, there's a big difference between really good accountability and solid management, where we are very results focused and very intense about hitting goals and very public about reports and hitting actual results versus celebrating and respecting the sales effort. Like that, those two things are not mutually exclusive. You can have a kick-ass ability focused, but really fun, really healthy pro sales environment, right? And that's really what we're looking for when we talk sales culture. On the other side, there are some common things I see in companies that I smell these and I'm like, this is an anti-sales culture. When the operations guy is in charge and starts telling the salespeople what he wants them to sell, regardless of what the salespeople say the customer needs. And when we have, in the last company I worked at, it was hysterical. The control, this woman regularly took arbitrary commission deductions from salespeople every month. And that day I would get a line outside my door of salespeople complaining, well, what was this woman doing? And the truth is, the ownership of the company knew she was doing it, and they looked the other way. And to me, it was them telling us, we really don't care about you, right? We're going to make you fight for every dollar. And if there's ever a question, the benefit of the doubt goes to the finance person, not to the sales team. And that is the exact opposite. In fact, my friend Dave Stein, who I was on a webinar with about a couple months ago, he's got a great new book out called Beyond the Sales Process. And he was telling a story about he was with Honeywell with a senior executive, and the executive said to him, Dave, at our company, sales eats first. And the point was, in the dining room, whatever it is, we understand that you guys have the toughest job and everyone else's livelihood is dependent on you succeeding. You go ahead. You go first. You go get in line first. You do this. And I've worked in some companies where sales was treated like royalty. And yeah, we took advantage of it. It probably wasn't fair to people who weren't in sales. But I will tell you, out looking and jacking with their territories to try to minimize their income and doing everything. I don't want to say too much, but I have a friend working at a company right now who's telling me stories about his CEO that is a extreme micromanager and doesn't want to pay commission on certain deals, and no matter what the sales leader does, the CEO wants to jump in and then ask more questions about details. And you can see, I mean, it's hyper micromanagement and a total anti-sales culture. Momentum, and it's in the hearts of salespeople. Your question, I think we've got to figure out is it bad people or ignorant people doing dumb things that are damaging sales morale, or is it just good accountability and we got whining salespeople that don't want to be held accountable for results?
Yeah.
How's that?
I love that. I think that really helps. And when I look back to the situation that I mentioned that I experienced, I think it really was about ego. This particular person could not deal with another big ego, and I use that word. I want to use that word conservatively. I don't think I have a massive ego. Like I'm very self-aware, but ego in that this person's way was not always the right way, and I think that was where we kind of butted heads. And so even as a top performer, the ego ended up becoming the demise of the relationship. And so when you look at salespeople, I think you're right, Mike. It's very easy for salespeople to complain, but when you get into that situation, I'm thinking, like, if I were a sales leader, how do I decipher between what's fact and what's fiction, what's exaggerated? I like that you say that you ask top performers, because they're probably going to know exactly what is fact and what is fiction. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, they know. You ever want to find out what's going on in the company? Get in the car and spend a day with the top 3 salespeople. You'll find out in 5 minutes. They know exactly what's going on. And if management would only be smart enough, senior management, to involve their top producing salespeople in big decisions, oh my gosh, would things be so much, things would get faster, there'd be so much more buy-in. Because if you get the couple top producing salespeople to speak into a few policies, whether they're sales related or not, the whole sales team will follow along, and instead of them whining and complaining, they'll be championing the cause, going, yeah, they care, they got our input. I mean, there's nothing more important a senior leader could do than get the input of top producing salespeople when you're making big decisions. Because I'll tell you, when I was top producer, I really didn't want the recognition. You know what I wanted? I wanted my voice heard, and I wanted to be appreciated. I didn't really care about the trophy or being called up on stage, whatever. I got my jollies out of seeing the sales report and getting a fat commission check. But if they wanted to engage my heart, call me in the president's office and ask me what I think about this big decision or this policy. And tell me privately, man, what you're producing right now is helping us kill it. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm getting thank you notes from the bank because the money you're bringing into this company is really helping. I mean, that was what made my heart sing. So everybody's different, but, man, stay close to your top producers. You want to be a great sales leader, there's nothing stronger I could tell you than stay close to your top people and bring them in and get their input. And even if, let me just say this one more caveat, even if they're a royal pain in the ass, prima donna, high maintenance, demanding, do it anyway. Don't resent people are the hardest ones to work with, but there are so few people that can produce. I like to use Marshawn Lynch as the analogy when he was, beast. Marshawn Lynch is probably an ass, at least in public, and he's rude. The whole thing with the media and his attitude, but you know what? There were very few guys who could go into beast mode and move that ball down the field and score a touchdown like he could. And you cannot tell me that Pete Carroll is not a genius for finding a way to put up with Marshawn Lynch and not disciplining him and making it okay and giving him lots of leeway. And obviously he wasn't dragging down the teammates. It worked, right? I mean, so I've just got to give your top people a little more latitude because I'll give them a lot of leeway if the results are there.
That reminds me of a Jay-Z quote, numbers don't lie, people do. And I think anytime you can back something up with the numbers, then it's let the numbers speak for themselves. And I think that's true for Marshawn Lynch, and it's true for in any other prima donnas as well in the game of sports.
Yeah.
Hey, so guys, I have a quick question from the Twitterverse here. So Chris White wanted to know your opinion, Mike, on measuring technical sales consultant performance. So you love your framework and Sales Management Simplified.
First of all, Chris, thank you for the nice comments about the book. The question is, how do we measure performance of technical salespeople?
On technical sales consultants performance.
Okay, I'm not exactly sure I know what that means. I'm going to take that as I'm going to translate that question as what I think you're asking. How do we measure performance of someone who's selling something technical that may be very complex and have a long sales cycle? Is that possibly what you think maybe we're getting asked?
Yeah, I wasn't 100% sure on what he was asking about either. But I think he's talking about a technical salesperson. So I'd go with what you're saying.
Maybe just take a stab at it, Mike, and as you take a stab at it, maybe Chris can add a little bit more clarity on Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really important as we're holding salespeople accountable that the metrics make sense for what their job is and what they're selling, and that it aligns with the sales cycle and their other responsibilities. And there's not time to unpack that in great detail, like if we were in a multiple meeting talking about what the other responsibilities were and how many target accounts they're working and how long a deal takes and how many stakeholders exist at the prospect organization that we need to meet and how much buy-in we need to get. But all of that to say is that every job is a little different. And I've got some clients, I've got a sales client right now. Their sales cycle is really challenging. They call it intercoming in their company. It's what we would call is building consensus and meeting with various different constituencies and stakeholders. And there's 5, 6 people they've got to get in touch with and understand their angle and make sure they're not going to get, tripped up along the way. And so it's a long process. And, we measure them by number of opportunities created at different phases of the sales cycle. At the end of the year and at the end of the quarter, it's about quota in terms of closings. But honestly, in that company, also in my defense client, I can't talk too much about them because of non-disclosure things, but in the defense space, they're selling, or they don't call it selling, they call it business development. It's selling. They're doing BD work for programs that may not get produced for 5 or 7 years.
Crazy.
But the good ones are meeting with generals and agencies in the government that I can't even mention to you, and our allies and different manufacturers that are the primes in certain aerospace platforms. I'll just leave it at that. They're out there understanding where their business is going and what the threats will be 5 years from now, so that they're shaping criteria and they're trying to create opportunities today that we won't bill for 5 years.
Mm.
So we're judging them by dollars of opportunity created in certain areas. So all that was a really long answer to say there is no one way, but we got to know what we're trying to get to in the intermediate steps, so we can sense progress in a complex, long sales cycle. And salespeople need the reward. They need to feel that they're getting the attaboy and they can see some scorecard somewhere, because if the dollar's not coming for a long time, they still need to have some recognition. Plus, we want to have the vital signs, right? Like, what are the key metrics we should be monitoring aside from proposals in terms of dialogues, opportunities created, second meetings, where's engineering involved, etc. Mm-hmm. So if that's off target, the gentleman could come back and ask again.
Yeah, so he followed up a bit. He said he's saying like he's an engineer, like a solution engineer who supports the account executive. How do you think about the measure? Like, how do you measure somebody like that in their job?
I don't know. It's a great question. I would say depending how tight at the hip they are to the salespeople they work alongside and support, it might be appropriate that with a scorecard of where they're significantly contributing to advancing an opportunity or getting a buy from their technical partner on the customer side, or they get a notch and a piece of credit for deals get closed where they're involved. Because I don't want to diminish the role in a technical sale. That person's huge. And when we get a good engineer, a good technical support person who just talk and isn't arrogant and actually ask questions and tailor what they talk about and target their brilliance, so that they're not just bragging about how smart they are or how wonderful the solution is, but they're tying it into the customer's need because they did a good job paying attention to what we briefed them on during discovery, or even in the room or on a demo, they're sensing that. That's enormous. And those people, they can sink you or they can make you hugely successful.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Henry. What do you think? Henry, are we friends?
I'm thinking about like some of my sales engineers who I work with today, and I'm like, some of them are just amazing. It's like, because we already know they're brilliant, right? But like, there's a certain part you can't just spew it out, right? That's not what sales is. Don't just go in there and just talk about the product. Like, you still need to understand their challenges the same way that the AE is doing it. Maybe we're trying to understand a little more of the business process and everything. But now when they come in, they still want to. Some engineers will come in and just, all right, this is the demo. I do the same demo for everybody every time. It's like, that's not how it's done, right? It's like, okay, what's your problem? What's going on? All right, I'm going to make sure I harp on this kind of thing. And so I don't know. When you were saying it, I'm just sitting there like, oh my gosh. I'm thinking about like 2 or 3 of my engineers who I work with. They were just the best guys I've ever met.
Well, it's huge. Yeah, and we could have a whole other webinar on the topic of technical selling.
Yeah.
I have that in other clients where the coaching we're doing right now is trying to help those people be less arrogant.
Yeah.
The problem this one client of mine has, they are so freaking smart, and they have more patents on the wall in their hallway. The brainiacs that work at this place, it's so incredible. It doesn't mean, they have really high IQ, but their emotional intelligence is often low, and they come across as unlikable and know-it-alls, and they don't couch their questions appropriately, and they make the customer feel stupid, or they want to get in a technical pissing match. Well, that may make you feel good as a genius, but that's not advancing anybody's sale. So, I mean, we could. I mean, I know we're all kind of like, I'm just calling it like I see it. So it's very important that those people, if they can understand, it's not just about being smart, but it's about helping the customer win and making them feel good and trust us and like us. And all it means is we tailor our approach a little bit. You can get huge progress doing that.
I agree 1,000%.
So I want to. Did Chris get back and oh, he did clarify, right?
Yeah, he clarified. I had another one from Tom Strofolino. I hope I'm pronouncing that.
Bring it.
So what Tom was asking, how do we get a sales organization to create a culture of accountability where historically there hasn't been that culture as a line manager?
So the question was, how do we create a culture of accountability?
Yeah, in a sales organization where there hasn't been a culture of accountability historically.
I'm going to give you a couple really simple things to do, and these are all can be transformative. Number one, we're really clear about goals and results, and we publish them. Everyone has a goal, and we publish actual results, and it's not politically incorrect to put out a sales. I'm not saying to embarrass people. I'm not saying that we call them out in a sales meeting and make them underperformance, but we certainly do publish and discuss. The second thing I'll share may be the single biggest key forming and creating a culture of accountability. And I have an entire chapter on this in the book. There is nothing more important and more powerful than a once-a-month formal manager, sales rep, one-on-one meeting. And where the focus of that meeting is results and then pipeline. And if the results aren't good and the pipeline isn't full and healthy, then an activity search and look at calendars and sales calls and quantity. But we don't start there, because if you start there, that's micromanagement. And my mentor and my friend Donnie Williams, who taught me this, he was my sales manager, he was my partner at one point. Now I use him on some of my clients even now, even though he's got a full-time job doing something else. He taught me how to be a great sales manager. And if you meet with everybody one-on-one once a month, and even 15 minutes, I don't care if you have 20 direct reports, you can spend 15 minutes with every person once a month. This is not a coaching meeting. This is not a deal strategy meeting. This is the rep is going to face the music one-on-one every month and answer for their results. And where's my glasses? Donnie Williams would come in my office. This is back pre-CRM, right? We didn't have any. I'm talking in the 90s. He would come in my office once a month, and he would put his glasses on the end of his nose, and he'd bring his little pad in and the sales report. And he'd say, "Mike, how you doing?" And then I would start to answer. He'd go, "Stop. $63,000. Your quota was $900,000. What happened?" By answering for results. And I'd have to tell what happened and why I didn't hit the number. And he would say, "You're still number one goal. You're not." And I'm very frustrated. Now let's go through every deal that's meaningful that's going to close next quarter or next month, and where are you at, and what's back from last month. And he would do a serious pipeline review. And you can do all this in 15 minutes. And then if he loved what was in the pipeline, the meeting was over. He'd go, "Mike, you're doing great. I see you've got a full, fat, healthy, moving pipeline. You're going to blow your number away next month and next quarter. Keep it up." But if the results weren't there and the pipeline was anemic, then he would dig into the activity, and it was not pleasant. And this is not micromanagement. This is just good management. And he would say, "Mike, where have you been? Who did you see? Tell me how many calls you made. Grab your calendar. Who are you going to see next month? What about all these prospects on your list you told me you were going to get in front of? How's that going?" So you want to create a culture of accountability? One-on-one, once a month, 15 minutes with every person in this order. Results, then pipeline, and all the kind of stories and how to do that. I mean, everyone's told me that chapter in the book. This is the book alone. I think it might be chapter 20. It's one-on-one meetings. So that's the best I can answer that question.
That was one of my biggest takeaways from the book as well, Mike. And I love it because it's prioritizing the right things first. And I do think it's correct in that if you focus on the activities, then you start to get into micromanaging how many calls did you make. I mean, if you have the production,
Absolutely.
you have the pipeline, those sort of things are a result of the foundational activities. And so if you're meeting your quota, or you've got the pipeline there and it's loaded and it's about to pop, maybe you missed it this month, but next month it's about to pop, cool, let it ride. No need to go into the details. But if you're an underperformer and you're consistently not meeting quota and you have no pipeline, then I do think it's right. You should go over those activities, because that's kind of what builds to meeting the quota.
Right, and what I would just add to that is, if you're really a good manager and you're doing these one-on-ones every month, it doesn't take too many months in a row of having a pretty pathetic conversation with a rep where you finally go, okay, I got to do that third R. I have to remediate or replace. I have to coach up or coach out this person. And it doesn't have to be emotional and explosive. You just look at the guy and go, listen, this isn't working. I thought you were going to turn it around. You thought you were going to turn it around. We've met 4 months in a row. You haven't hit your results. You're not adding new opportunities to the pipeline. I'm not confident that this is going to change. We have 60 days. I'm going to work with you. I think you can do this. I'm going to invest. Where's your business plan? Where's your list? I'm expecting this level. Let's see if we can turn this around. And that's if you think that is a keeper.
Yeah.
Formal plan, whatever you got to do with HR to move them on. Let them go fail somewhere else. But there's no excuse. I don't understand when I go into a company and an executive says to me, hey, why don't you spend extra time with Johnny? Johnny hasn't made his number in 3 years. And I look back at the executive and go, are you crazy? I'm not going to let you pay time with Johnny. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. You know what to do with Johnny. Let's work with people who we can turn around. So you can't tolerate under long, because it kills the culture along with the results.
Yeah. So actually, when I was interviewing for the job I'm at, because I believe there's a few different types. There's 3 different types of like sales cultures at a company. There's everybody has a really high number but nobody hits it kind of thing. There's everybody has a decent number, but if you don't hit it, like, you're fired the next day kind of thing. And then there's that right in between, and the company I'm at now had the right in between. But I asked the president of sales when I came, like, I need to know what kind of culture it is, because I don't want to be at a place where nobody's hitting their number, because what's the point of that, right? Like, I mean, that's not why I got into sales. I could have got into something else if I didn't care about hitting and exceeding numbers. And I also don't want to get fired, for missing one month, right? So you kind of have to find that happy medium, and I think it's important.
I like that, Henry. That's very good.
Yeah.
So Mike, how do you? I'd like to spend maybe like 5 or 10 minutes on culture, and then 5 or 10 minutes on like sales process, since you kind of save that for last in the book. Talk about culture.
I've got about 10 minutes. I'm good for about another 10 minutes. So
cool.
Sure.
Okay. So 5 on culture, 5 on sales process. Talk about your top tips for the sales leader. How do you create culture that creates production?
I think it all comes down to time allocation. Part of the reason I think we have crappy sales cultures is sales managers are caught up in their underwear doing everything but high-value activity that adds to the culture and adds to results. And again, what do we mean by healthy culture? A healthy culture is competitive, it's intense, it's energetic, it's results and goals focused, it's fun, it's a lot of times I'll say it's loud. I worked in a little software company where it was silent, and if you made any noise, they looked at you like you were sinning. And I tell a couple of stories about that in the book, but I was freaking out. I'm like, I'm sorry that all you software coders want quiet. Salespeople aren't quiet, and we can't operate quiet. Like, there's a culture thing going on here. So a healthy culture. It's like in the locker room, a winning team. It's to get the culture, the 3 highest value activities, and I spend a lot of clients. The 3 highest value ways a sales leader can spend his or her time. We talked about number 1, one-on-one meetings. We talked about the accountability meeting. The other one-on-one meeting is the coaching meeting, where you can combine it with the accountability and turn that 15-minute meeting into an hour meeting. I don't care, but don't cheat yourself with that 15, because that's magical with how that transforms the accountability performance part of it. But coaching is very important, and deal strategy and one-on-one and getting to know your person and what makes them tick and how you're going to help them succeed. Plus, when you do good coaching and you meet one-on-one with your people to review deals and to ask hard questions, you not only get to know them better, but you also start getting ideas for sales training and good topics, which will lead me right to my second, the number 1 high-value activity. The number 2, and I got to tell you guys, some sales team meetings don't have to suck. They don't have drudgery. Salespeople should not be in there playing on their phones or showing up in bad attitudes. They should actually look forward to them. And my litmus test for a sales meeting is, do the salespeople leave more energized, better aligned, and better equipped to do their jobs? That's quite a challenge. I dare sales leaders to poll your sales team and ask, when you walk out of our sales meeting, I don't know if it's a once-a-week hour, or is it a once a month, or once a quarter? Depends. And is this on the phone? Is it video? Is it face-to-face? Depends on the company and the geography. And I don't even want to get into the cadence. I'll just talk in general. But do your people leave more energized? I mean, literally. I used to work for a company where we had Monday morning sales meetings. They were supposed to be an hour. They often lasted 2. I showed up, my batteries were fully charged, it was Monday morning, I was self-motivated, I was ready to go. By the time that pathetic meeting was over 2 hours later, I needed oxygen and a nap. It took every bit of my energy away, and then the day of the week was a disaster. I was trapped in a negativity, and so are your people leaving energized? Are you equipping them to do their job better? Right? Are we sharing best practices? Are you reading a book together? Are you using a video? Are you doing something that's helping them? Are you practicing role-playing to make the meeting energizing? And then the last part, are we more aligned? Are you sharing important info from the company? Are you sharing vision? Are you bringing in product experts? Are you doing maybe some type of product training? There's so much good that can be done in a sales team meeting. Again, in the book, imagine that. There's an entire chapter dedicated to sales team meetings, and I give like a dozen potential agenda topics that'll make the life of the sales manager a lot easier. I'm going to give one tip though right now. Part of the reason I think sales meetings, I'll give you 2 reasons sales meetings are really lame. 1, they're not sales meetings. They're bitch sessions, or and we trap the salespeople in the room, and then we do like customer service, and then so that's the number 1 reason. The number 2 reason is poor sales manager carries burden. They do all the prep work, they do all the planning, they facilitate, they do the training. It doesn't have to be that way. The best sales managers offload the majority of the work for a sales team meeting. They have people share best practices, they assign someone to lead a book or blog study, and they run through a chapter at a time each meeting. They ask someone to bring a situation to the table where they're stuck and present on it, and then we solve it as a group. There's so much you can do in a meeting that would be more you're having a monologue. So there's a tip, and there's a lot more in the book, obviously. 1, number 2, to build the culture you want is great. Number 3, work alongside someone on the inside sales team. And is a lost. I mean, managers used to take pride in how much time they spend working with and coaching their people. And I'm just going to say this right now. You cannot lead a sales team by email, and I don't care how much time you spend with your head buried in a CRM screen staring at reports. Sales managers, and you have to inspect what you expect. I stole that from one of the great managers that I mentored a couple years ago. You have got to get out in the field if you have an outside sales team and watch your salespeople work. No, you don't do their job for them, and no, you don't show up to be the hero. You go as the coach, you go as a second person. Maybe you bring a little gravitas to the meeting because you're the outsider, but man, you watch them and you coach them. Before meetings, after meetings, debriefing. That's huge. And if you have an inside sales team, you work with them. You go sit in the cube next to them. Don't just spy on their phone calls. Like, get there and sit with them and encourage them and challenge them and give them feedback after a call. What'd you do well? What didn't go well? What could we have done differently? So you're there and you care and you're investing in them. Those three things, man, that will change a culture and it will move the needle on sales performance for sure. All right, so that was the question on culture. Is that fair?
Yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome. Okay, so we got a couple of minutes left. Anything to add to like sales process? What are your top one or two things that you recommend to companies you consult with?
On sales process,
Yes.
Is that what you said?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm going to keep it really simple, and I hate this like I'm plugging my other book, but I'm blown away by my first book. It's just coming up on being out for 4 years. All I'll say is go read the reviews on Amazon. I am shocked at the response to the simple message. And the framework I preach in there, 70% of the book is dedicated to this very simple sales process framework. We need to pick targets, right? Salespeople need to select strategic target accounts that they intentionally are going to pursue. We need to build and then deploy weapons, which we're going to launch at those targets. Your weapons are your story. Can you articulate value, right? Can you communicate in a succinct, compelling, client issue focused and differentiating way what it is your company does for its clients and the value you create? And then can you use the social selling skills? Can you get a meeting? And when you get that meeting, can you conduct a good customer meeting? Can you do discovery? Do you share an agenda? Do you take control? Do you ask questions? When it's time to present, can you present? And then all the follow-up sales weapons, all the way through presenting and proposing and closing. So the first part of the framework is we pick our targets. The second part is we need weapons from our story all the way through prospecting, telephone, email, discovery, probing, presenting, closing, etc. And then the third part of the framework is planning and executing the sales attack, which means your calendar is filled up with sales activity, and you're tracking metrics, and you have a business plan, and you monitor your pipeline. And the way I reframe that for the sales manager, and I did this at the very end of Sales Manager Simplified, is if you took those three aspects of the framework, and when I go into a company to do a new business development work, I do them almost every week. I'm flying somewhere to do a day or a few. That's always the outline. We're going to talk about targeting. We're going to talk about and coach them on the phone to run a sales call, presenting, so we don't keep getting commoditized and diminishing our value. And then how are we going to fill up our calendar to maximize sales activity? If we were to translate that to sales management language, in the last 3 chapters of the Sales Management book, I say it very simply. These are our responsibilities. We need to point the team. We need to arm the team. And then we need to monitor the battle in real time. So pointing the team, you do not take for granted that your salespeople are putting their energy against the accounts. You get intimately involved in making sure they're selecting strategic targets, whether they're growable customers we're trying to pay or cross-sell, or they're prospects that we're going after. Whatever it is in your business, you don't abdicate there. You don't take for granted your people are going the right direction. It's too important, right? Even the best salespeople will not have optimal results going after the wrong target. So you point the team. Number 2, your job is to arm them. And I don't care if you're not a sales technician and you can't teach them every aspect of selling, you still cannot send your sales team out into battle unless they have a story, unless they know how to get a meeting, unless they can run a good sales meeting. And if you don't have that, man, I can point you to some great books and great resources, but you've got to arm your team to do that. So point your team, arm your team, and then monitor the battle. Do you have good tools? Does your pipeline, whatever you're using for your pipeline system, is it actually outputting you information that's usable? And do you have the kind of sales reports that you can actually look at and run the business by? And I'm so frustrated. And well, we don't have that module. I'm like, I don't care. Tell the accountant people to figure it out and get it for you. Like, if you're going to whine about my salespeople's performance, why don't you spend a couple hours and build me a stinking report that I can use, that I can evaluate how people are doing against goal, against last year, against each other. IT person or some accounting person in your company could produce for you what you need, and you should be absolutely demanding that they help you get it. So that's my sales process, as simple as possible. What would happen, and I'm going to just, this is my closing argument for all the sales leaders and all the owners of companies, that what would happen if you were sales, your sales leader spent most of his or her time doing one-on-one meetings for accountability and for coaching, running great team meetings, and then working in the field or in the office sales people. And then what if, from a sales process perspective, we pointed the team in the right direction towards the right target, the weapons they needed, and we monitored the talent front. If we actually put people who like to hunt and stopped asking people who are wired like zookeepers to be sales hunters, right? What would happen to your results? And no one ever has an argument, right? I just told you everything I know about sales in the last 60 seconds. And that's how we go into companies and fix stuff. But you have to be willing to change. There's not one rocket science aspect to what I just shared. That is freaking simple stuff. That's why I call this stuff simplified. And I'm yet to find a company, from my local printer all the way to this global $20 billion defense company, where we're not moving the needle on sales performance, focusing on those very basic things.
Incredible. There's so much to digest there. So much to digest. I've got to go back through and watch this again. It's so good. So
I'm getting an amen. All right, good.
Yes.
I think you put it perfect, right? You just have to be willing to change, and I think that, if people hear it, it makes sense, right? And it's just like, all right, are you willing to actually get it done and do it? And I think that's probably the hardest. That's probably the hurdle that you run into the most. But once you're willing to do it, like you said, you move the needle. So. I really appreciate you taking the time, Mike, to talk to us about all this.
Yeah, thank you. And Mike, real quickly, I know you got to go. Where can people find your books, and how can people reach out to you if they want to hire you as your consultant?
They should call you for your commission if they want to hire me, and then you can introduce them to me. No, first of all, thank you guys. This is a total pleasure. What a fun way to spend Sunday evening and start off the new week. So thank you for that. The books are available at a number of retailers, but honestly, Amazon, that's the lowest price and the most availability. And New Sales Simplified and Sales Management Simplified, you can just read the reviews and grab one there. On Twitter, it's Mike_Weinberg, Weinberg. And I blog about once a week, and my website is newsalescoach.com.
Brilliant, brilliant. Mike, thanks again so much. We really, really appreciate it. One of the best episodes we've had so far. So thank you, and I wish you a good evening, and we'll certainly keep in touch.
Yes, love it. Good night.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, man.
Right.